After the shock victory for Gerhard Berger in Hungary, it suddenly seems like there's a shift in the air. Are McLaren really home and dry already, or is the threat from Ferrari real? The 1988 Belgian Grand Prix is next. Hey guys, and welcome back to Streamline. It's now a weekly series apparently. This is round 11 of our first season in this career mode, where we've created our own Formula 1 team. We're trying to take it from the back of the grid all the way to the front and win the World Championship. Who knows how many seasons that will take. Round 11 today sees us visit Spa-Francorchamps, the Belgian Grand Prix, the longest circuit on the calendar. The race distance is not 73 laps, it's 43 laps. That's a typo. And the objective is to qualify for the race, because it's a lot of straight lines, which is very difficult for our car. And you'll see the weather for pre-qualifying and the race is wet. Qualifying seems to be slightly more okay in dry conditions. Martin Brundle still at the helm of the only Streamline on the grid, and Martin Donnelly waiting in the wings for his chance, which could potentially come next season. The Constructors' Championship going into this one, McLaren suffered not a great result for them in Hungary, not scoring too many points, as opposed to Ferrari, who won their first race of the season to slightly close that gap, but not by much. Lotus, the battle for second is between Ferrari and Lotus. They are 5 points separated going into this race. And here's a fun one today. We are going to vote for which 3 of the drivers on screen right now we are going to try and recruit for the first driver seat for the 1989 Streamline team. If you want to vote on this, you must join the Streamline Discord. The link is in the description down below. It's between Nakajima, Johansson, Caffey, Alio, Palmer and De Cesaris. We'll pick the 3 most popular ones and send them a message, or send them a mail at least, and see which are interested, and then we can make our final decision. You can see their interest on the right hand side there. Johansson very interested, and so is Andrea De Cesaris. He's very interested and could be very cheap considering he's been out for a season. But in the meantime, we're stuck with our favourite Martin Brundle, whose relationship with us is very low, his morale is very low, motivation very low. But he's had 64 race starts now. No points for Streamline, nowhere near points for Streamline yet. We've not even got a top 10 finish so far this year. Let's find out what's been happening in this week for Formula 1. Zakspeed are delighted to have made the grid with 1 car in Hungary and are determined to keep this form going. Senna has lambasted Patrese for stopping on the racing line in Hungary, which cost Senna a shot at a podium. Gerhard Berger picked up his first win since 1987. It seems the Ferrari upgrades are finally beginning to work. Another double DNF for Williams occurred in Hungary. Patrese has retired from 8 out of the first 10 races. Alex Caffey and Scuderia Italia continue to improve, with Caffey almost claiming another top 10 result in Hungary. Julian Bailey is on the road to recovery and could return for the Italian Grand Prix, but it's more likely he'll be back for the Portuguese Grand Prix. Tyrrell bring an upgrade to their engine, which further bolsters their hopes. This upgrade also affects the other Ford-powered cars. Benetton bring a reshaped body design to Belgium. Boutsen returned to the points in Hungary, his first since his podium in Mexico. Minardi have managed to save weight on their car, cutting the mass by around 5 kilograms. Ligier are set to bring yet another upgrade, a new rear wing on the way. Larousse introduced their final car upgrade of the year with a new front wing and diffuser. And that is all for the news. Only a couple of upgrades for a different team or so, but the big upgrade is Ford, and they've got a lot of customers. So Ford bringing a power boost to the engine, which might finally mean that we can reach a higher top speed, especially important in circuits like Belgium and Monza, which are the next 2 coming up. But Scuderia Italia are really the talk of the town for how they've developed their car throughout this year. Streamline languishing down in 16th place, and we will probably remain there for the rest of the season. I doubt Zakspeed or Acela are going to be bringing any big upgrades towards the end of this year. My favourite section of the videos, it's time to look at the mail. Andrea De Cesaris says, I'd love to return. Hi there, I'm sure you were expecting this letter at some point. I've been out of a drive this season, but that's not down to my lack of talent at all. I've claimed numerous podiums and I've learned the ins and outs of many teams around the paddock. I hear you're looking for a new driver for next year, and I would like to present myself as willing and able. I hope to hear from you soon. We've not had much talk about Andrea De Cesaris so far this year. I know some of you have commented about it in previous videos, but he was technically racing for what our team is. Streamline replaced Real, which would have been on the grid, and De Cesaris was their driver. A message from our technical director Matt Hughes. Hey boss, I've got some great news today. Ford have offered their newly upgraded engine to all customer teams, which should provide additional performance and power. This is great timing as we have 2 tough races upcoming. This upgrade should enable our car to reach speeds we have never seen so far this year, and will make Martin's job a bit easier in qualifying. P.S. Where are we in terms of contract talks? I'd like to make necessary arrangements in case I am not kept on. Thanks. Now, with the team personnel, I don't know if I'll do that myself or I'll let you guys help decide as well. Because all the team personnel, as you all know, is you guys. You guys in the Discord have created your own characters. And Barry Goodman just talking about that now. Just the point about staff recruitment. The choice of staff, chief designer, technical director, engineers, are completely up to you and your team. You don't necessarily need to craft a shortlist, but keep in mind the quality of personnel out there. Our current team is lacking compared to our ambitions of creating a top team. Barry. Yeah, so I'm not sure if I'll create a shortlist or I'll just leave it up to myself or you guys. I'll figure that one out over the next few weeks. Barry has also sent a letter about the driver shortlist. Nice work with creating the shortlist for the first driver position. If you can work through that with your team before the next race weekend at Monza, then that would be great. I've looked through the shortlist myself and I believe the Cesaris would be rather cheap and that would be a good choice considering the budget we have. Whatever you do, make the correct decision. I don't want to have to clean up after your poor choices. I think he's referring to Martin Brundle's hiring. Maybe Brundle was too big for the team. And that was maybe a mistake of my own part. Maybe Barry's fault. Who knows? But we do have that shortlist. And like I said, make sure to join the Discord if you want to vote on that. And before we jump into this race weekend, let's have a look at what the people in the news have been saying. Charlie Hast from Inside F1, Senna throws it away. Ayrton Senna has been untouchable for the majority of this season, but his performance in Hungary might not just be a blip. Oftentimes in sport we see that momentum carries success, and when that momentum is stunted, all hell breaks loose. I'm not saying Senna's hopes are over, I'm just suggesting that the championship is definitely not wrapped up yet. He's got a point, momentum carries until momentum is stopped, and Senna might just be a blip, but it might be his momentum taking a big dive towards the deep end of the pool. Hector Santos from Engine Temp. Berger back on top. Gerhard Berger achieved his first victory of the season in Hungary by besting the McLaren duo of Prost and Senna. The Austrian was on a poor run of form of 5 retirements in a row prior to this victory in Budapest. Is this now a turning point for Ferrari's season? They've been constantly upgrading their package without seeing much in terms of tangible results, but that might all change now. Is it a one-off? I don't know. Gerhard Berger has been there or thereabouts, at least in qualifying, but race pace has been a lot left to be desired at least, and Senna slipping up might be the only reason Berger actually managed to win that one. We'll see with the remaining races. Jeff Bennett from Uni Motors, the driver market. I've heard that Andrea De Cesaris is pushing for a return to the grid by inquiring about space at both Zakspeed and Eurobrunn. Who's to say he's not already worked out a deal? Luckily, the press do not know about Streamline and Andrea De Cesaris discussing terms, so that's good. In other news, Ron Dennis has assured fans that Prost is here to stay for 1989, but the paddock rumours seems to indicate the opposite. I can't see who can possibly fill that void at McLaren if the Frenchman left. Well, what we've been hearing for the past few races is that Prost is set in stone to go to maybe Ferrari, but now here's Jeff Bennett saying that Ron Dennis has said that he's staying at the team. I don't know who to believe in this scenario. Anyway, enough of the rumours, let's get into the race weekend. First up, pre-qualifying. Pre-qualifying got underway in very wet conditions. Stefano Modena the first out on track, and of course he was the first to set a time. He went quickest, swiftly beaten there by the Osella of Nicola Larini, and as the conditions started to improve, so did the times. Bernd Schneider, the Zakspeed out there, he went fastest. Then it was beaten by Stefano Modena. Larori and Ginzani nowhere to be found, down in 4th and 5th, I believe, at this stage. And then the Nicola Larini in the Osella went quickest overall to end the session. And that meant Nicola Larini was fastest. But look at the time. 2 minute 19 second in those conditions. Incredibly slow. Modena second. Then the Zakspeed of Schneider, who finished first in pre-qualifying in Hungary. He's third here. Oscar Larori scrapes through. And Piercarlo Ginzani knocked out. He will not take part in the qualifying session. It's not looking good for Ginzani now that he has to go through pre-qualifying. He's only made 1 start so far this season. His teammate Bernd Schneider has made 2 now after qualifying in Hungary. And maybe Bernd Schneider will qualify here. I don't know if the Zakspeed car really suits this circuit. But Nicola Larini in the Osella looking very, very handy behind the wheel. Let's get into a dry qualifying session. It's qualifying for the 1988 Belgian Grand Prix. It was Philipp Streif to go fastest first, but that was very swiftly beaten by Alain Prost with only 5 minutes on the clock at this stage. He goes fastest, the Frenchman, to the top. He's already had 2 pole positions this season, I believe, as Martin Brundle heads out onto circuit to start his first flying lap, which actually turns out to be his fastest flying lap in the session. It's a very long circuit here. Down through the first corner goes Brundle, and let's see what sort of speed the Streamline can reach. I think our previous best this season was 259 kilometers an hour, so let's see what that Ford upgrade has brought to our car. Hopefully at least maybe 10 kilometers an hour. That's sort of what I'm hoping for. As down this long straight, I think it's called the Kemmel Straight, a very great overtaking opportunity come race day. We've already hit 260 kilometers an hour, and it's still counting upwards, 265, 266 before we slam on the brakes. So we've gained there 7 kilometers of an hour straight line speed, which might make us more competitive, at least in the race, to defend and attack other drivers and to make qualifying easier, especially in these circuits where straight line speed is so important. Alain Prost's provisional pole time, a 2:02.3, is a very competitive time. In practice, nobody went under a 2 minute 3 seconds, so Prost already smashing the record set this weekend by whoever it was. I think it was Ayrton Senna in practice, and Brundle will be looking to maybe get a 2 minute 08. I think that'll be good enough to get Brundle on the grid. That should be the cut-off point, maybe a 209 or 208 to see if you can get to the top 26. But like I said, a very long circuit. It's hosted 22 races in the World Championship, first starting back in 1950, but it didn't always host the Belgian Grand Prix Spa. It was off the calendar for a few years here and there, and it went to other venues around Belgium, but it's back here, and it's been back here now. I think this is the 3rd or 4th season in a row that it's been hosted at this very circuit. And what a circuit it is, one of the best in the world. It's not as long or as arduous or crazy as the original Spa layout, but it's still a very respectable circuit, and drivers and teams and fans all enjoy it. Down towards the bus stop chicane then for the final time in this lap. It's been a really solid lap from Martin Brundle, throwing it across the curbs. Usually you'd see a Streamline spin out there, but Brundle managing it well, and up towards the line. Martin Brundle, it's a 2 minute 08.391. Alex Caffey had a rough ride into the wall at turn 1 after something failed on his car. Big impact there, but he's okay to carry on. Alain Prost improves on his provisional pole time, going 1/10 quicker than his previous best, as Thierry Boutsen, the home favourite, circulating the track, missing a front wing. But the biggest shock, Ayrton Senna on his only flying lap got held up by Jonathan Palmer. He's only 7th place.
Go, go, go! Senna!
To the starting grid, and Alain Prost claims back-to-back pole positions, and Gerhard Berger, the hero in Hungary, qualifies in 2nd place. Roberto Moreno has 2nd off pole but in 3rd place, and Boutsen, an impressive lap time from the Benetton at his home race, in 4th place ahead of Nelson Piquet, the reigning world champion. Nigel Mansell slots in at 6th ahead of Nakajima. Ayrton Senna, after getting held up by Jonathan Palmer, he's in 8th place ahead of the 2nd Benetton of Nannini and the 2nd Williams of Patrese. Warwick and Cheever, the 2 arrows on the 6th row of the grid. Andy Wallace, a better qualifying performance from him this time around, up in 13th. René Arnoux in a much improved Ligier yet again. Can they finish the race for once? He starts from 14th ahead of Maurizio Gugelmin. It's 16th place for Philippe Alliot. Then it's Stefan Johansson. Yannick Dalmas makes it. 2 LaRouche drivers, 16th and 18th. Jonathan Palmer, guilty of holding up Senna. 19th place for him. Alex Caffey suffered that not an injury, but a crash midway through that session. But his lap time prior to that puts him in 20th place. Then it's the 2 Minardis, Perez Sella and Martini. Rothengatter makes it both Tyrrells onto the grid again. Philip Strife in 24th. Martin Brundle making it onto the grid. This was going to be a tough test for Streamline, but he's done it. 25th place, and Larini the final driver. That means Gabriel Tarquini, Bernd Schneider, Stefano Modena and Oscar Larori all miss out. So 43 laps ahead of the drivers today at a rain-soaked circuit. This Belgian Grand Prix is going to be a firecracker. 2-stop strategy for Martin Brundle, pitting lap 15 and lap 30, keeping it very simple down at Streamline. Can they record a good result? The objective for them is to finish the race, but can they even do better than that? Maybe a best result of 12th or higher. Let's see what happens. There's only one more thing to do, and that's go racing. The 1988 Belgian Grand Prix is next. And here we are on the grid. The rain has started to fall, but everybody's starting on the soft tyres as the lights go out. And Martin Brundle unleashes the Streamline down towards turn 1 here in Belgium, trying to get the inside line on some of these drivers. There's Martini on the outside. There's Caffey on the outside. And Yannick Daumas. Martin Brundle up the inside as it's very slow at the apex of turn 1. Philippe Alliot is one Larousse too many for Martin Brundle, who's now up a few positions into 21st place. Another driver further up, I think it was Jonathan Palmer, made an absolutely fantastic start as we head down towards Eau Rouge and Raidillon for the first time. There's Hub Rothengatter struggling towards the end of lap 1. Rothengatter wide across the curb. Can Martin Brundle force his way up the inside? They're side by side at the apex, but Rothengatter in the Tyrrell holds onto it. And I kept this clip in because look at the speed we reach down here with the slipstream, with the low drag setup, with the Ford engine upgrade. 270 kilometers an hour heading towards Blanchimont. The inside line for Martin Brundle. Hugh Rothengatter runs wide and through goes Brundle into a top 20 place as that concludes the first lap of manic action. Prost holds on to the lead, Moreno up a position, Piquet up 2 and Gerhard Berger had a terrible start from 2nd down to 5th place. Ayrton Senna has not gained any places off the start. Nannini up 3 places for Benetton. Fantastic start for him, but the biggest gainer on lap 1 was Jonathan Palmer. He started down in 19th place, he's already up to 13th. And Martin Brundle also gaining 5 positions. Luis Perez Sala started in 21st. He's now in 16th place as well. And what can these next 42 laps throw up in terms of action? I'm expecting a lot of action drama to unfold here, as that's Philippe Alliot running slightly wide. He's pinned to the inside for the left-hander, and Martin Brundle trying to get the up and under, and maybe Brundle to the inside of this right-hander at the end of sector 2. And they'll be side by side. Does Alliot get given any space on the outside of the corner? He does, but Brundle sends it again in the following right-hander and takes the place. Up to 19th now. Great from Martin Brundle as this is lap 3. That's Nelson Piquet running wide, and through goes Gerhard Berger on his quest to redeem himself after a poor start. And there's Senna in the background. He's challenging Alessandro Nannini. Nannini got the jump on Senna at the start, and Senna retaking that position, gaining yet another place as Alliot, with that brilliant straight line speed of the Larousse, goes back past Martin Brundle. But can Brundle fight back? Brundle all over the curbs in order to try and fight back as the rain continues to fall. It's getting heavier and heavier as the laps tick down. We're only on lap 3 to be fair, and up the inside goes Brundle. Alliot gives him the space. This downward corner, I don't know what name of the corner it is, but Brundle's going to take that position back up into 9th place. Not 9th place, 19th place. He'll be getting after Gugelmin now as Senna is getting after home hero Boutsen. I believe that's for 7th or maybe even 6th place, so Senna into the points now. Gugelmin has been really struggling these past few races. The March driver, the March is like the 7th best car, and now he's losing out to Martin Brundle. Through goes Brundle, or Gugelmin trying to keep it on the inside. The Brazilian holds onto the place for now. Brundle has plenty of time to make this position stick. And this is lap 5 now, and Moreno under pressure for 2nd place as Gerhard Berger goes up the inside. Nelson Piquet into the pits in the background to put on the intermediate tyres. So he's braving that decision in order to try and gain some places as Berger gets past his teammate. Gugelmin now under pressure into turn 1. There's Martin Brundle. That's a dive bomb, but that's a position gained for Brundle, who's having a very fantastic race so far. It's only been 4.5 laps. But he's gained another place. Gugelmin now trying to fight back. The March driver up the inside at the end of the Kemmel Straight retakes that position, but not for long. Martin Brundle, that is one hell of a dive bomb. He's not messing around today. Martin Brundle has the bit between his teeth after failing to qualify back in Hockenheim at a very similar circuit in terms of straight line speed required. Brundle here is really pulling out the stops for the team. Streamline will be very happy. Martini up the inside there of Hub Rothengatter. Rothengatter carrying a bit of damage, so he's falling down the order pretty quickly as Alessandro Nannini now under pressure from Nakajima, and Nannini with a failure into turn 1 and hits the wall at the first corner. Alessandro Nannini out of this race as the two Larousse drivers do battle. Yannick Daumas and Philippe Alliot, they've been nose to tail basically the whole season. We've seen a brilliant battle between the two drivers back at Silverstone, and that time Daumas going up the inside of Alliot, or the other way around, I'm not sure which is which. And now they're going to fight and go side by side through Eau Rouge, and they've switched round again. Brilliant action as we've reached lap 10. Nelson Piquet there in shot. He's been in for the intermediate tyres, so he's down into 16th place. So that's why he's lost 13 positions. But Prost still has the lead here. Berger back up to 2nd place, and Senna's made a brilliant start in these first 5 laps or 10 laps He's up 5 positions from where he started. He's up to 3rd place. Moreno starting to tumble down the order, as most drivers now probably thinking about a switch to the intermediates. Some drivers have already switched to the intermediates, like I said, Nelson Piquet, and it's just about that crossover point where the intermediates are the fastest tyre, as Martini sees the 2 LaRouche drivers battling and says thank you very much, slipstreams both of them and moves past both of them. So it's a double overtake for Martini, as now Dalmas tries to force his way through on Alio, or Alio on Dalmas. I really don't know which one is which. They have very similar helmets as well. But the LaRouche drivers once again switching round, and that is Yannick Dalmas now trying to fight back against Philippe Alliot. He's gone wide into the wall. That's a big crash, and Yannick Dalmas becomes the next retirement of the Belgian Grand Prix. And that's not the biggest issue. Alain Prost coming around the final corner, slowing down. The race leader stops on circuit. Suspension failure sees Prost out of this race. So it's going to be a change of lead, as Nelson Piquet now putting a move on Perez Sala into turn 1. Gerhard Berger has moved up into the race lead, and Senna has jumped up into 2nd place. So Ayrton Senna could end up winning this race anyway. As into the pits goes Martin Brundle for the first time, and he's decided to opt for the intermediate tyres. He'll rejoin down in 16th place. So it could be a good result here for Martin Brundle. Best result of 13th this season. And this is Senna putting the pressure on race leader Gerhard Berger. Can he pull off an overtake at some point? Maybe. Down the long Kemmel straight, and he stopped as well. Senna has stopped on circuit. Apparently a collision causing him to retire. Not suspension failure like his teammate, but it's a double McLaren retirement within half race distance here. I can't believe what I'm seeing. And this is Patrese and Cheever going at it. Patrese has moved through. Eddie Cheever now under pressure from Nelson Piquet, who has those intermediate tyres warmed up nice and toasty. Cheever all over the shop, and through goes Nelson Piquet. Brilliant move for Piquet up into 6th place on his road to recovery. But Eddie Cheever, he's fighting back. Cheever up the inside on the following lap to retake that 6th place. Great battle between the Arrows and the Lotus. Piquet will be fuming that he's actually battling in Arrows and not battling the Ferraris and McLarens, as Martin Brundle getting very close to Andy Wallace. Andy Wallace out there struggling on his tyres. This is for 13th place. Like I said, Brundle's best result of the season so far was a 13th place. And Brundle really pushing the envelope to try and get this move done. But he's turned in too soon to the first corner, and round he goes. It's quite a strange one, because usually Brundle spins on his own accord, but this time he's tapped the wall to make it happen. Loses a position to Perez Sala as we've reached lap 20. Gerhard Berger in the lead. Thierry Boutsen at his home Grand Prix in 2nd place. Imagine that, a podium at his home Grand Prix. Satoru Nakajima, he scored 1 podium so far this year at a similar circuit back in Germany. Could he be on for his 2nd ever podium of his career? Roberto Moreno, he's been solidly battling in the points, not very fast, but he's up there right now. And Nelson Piquet, like I said, he's been recovering. He overtook Cheever, then Cheever re-overtook him. Nigel Mansell's been into the pits, so he's down to 11th place, as Piquet has got past Cheever again, and Cheever's round wide. Cheever's out of the race. We've seen that already with Dalmas today, and Cheever has now made the exact same mistake. Maybe some oil down on the circuit there, making it very slippery, and Roberto Moreno retiring at the same corner on the following lap. Maybe the same issue. I can't believe what's happening down at that corner. 3 drivers making the exact same mistake. And that's Perez Sala clipping the inside ball. That's what Martin Brundle did a few laps prior. And now they switched positions again as we move on to lap 23. This is Nicola Larini in the Osella, who's been very impressive, at least in pre-qualifying. But that's the end of the road for the Osella today. No points, of course. No top 15, no top 10. They're out of the race. As back on board with Martin Brundle. We're into the 2nd half of the race now. Huub Rothengatter making himself a nuisance. He's a lapped car. Like I said earlier, he's carrying a bit of extra damage, which might be hurting his lap time. But Andy Wallace really under pressure. Gets a love tap there from Martin Brundle. Brundle's going to send it up the inside. Braking later than the inexperienced, at least F1-wise, Andy Wallace on the outside. And Brundle moves up into 11th place. Could a top 10 be on the cards for the Streamline? Not if Andy Wallace has anything to say about it. Brilliant battle down the Kemmel straight between these 2 drivers. Switching positions left, right and centre. And Andy Wallace once again moves up into 11th. Can Brundle do anything about it? He's trying his best. We know the march is much faster in a straight line, but Streamline's Martin Brundle is very, very determined to make up a position. But for right now, he has to stay behind Wallace until later on. Up the inside, he's already made this move into this corner on Andy Wallace. once before, and he's going to try and do it again, but Wallace defending with all his might. It's not enough. Through goes Martin Brundle. Nice move. 11th place again, as on lap 28 now. This is Hubert Rothengatter. He's been carrying damage since the start of the race, and sadly that damage is too much for his Tyrrell to continue. He's out of this one, and their hopes once again lie with Jonathan Palmer, as this is Philip Strife on lap 28, and the AGS, who had provisional pole, is now out of the race. Provisional pole for at least a minute before Prost stole it. He's out of this one, the latest retirement of the Belgian Grand Prix. Moving on to lap 30, and there is Tyrrell's hopeful Jonathan Palmer. And Palmer is up in 7th place. He's on the verge of points right now. Derek Warwick has made big strides in the past 10 laps. The top 3 though, stagnant, stable. Berger, Boutsen, Nakajima in that order. Mansell putting pressure on Palmer. Patrese putting pressure on Warwick a bit further ahead. And a lot of gainers up and down the grid in the top 20 due to the retirements we've seen in the previous 10 laps. Martin Brundle still battling with Andy Wallace for that 11th, 12th place. I think it's switched around once again. René Arnoux and Stefan Johansson, the two Ligiers, in the top 10. They've had so many double retirements, so many failures so far this season, and it's been covered extensively in the news section, as you are well aware. And they're dearly hoping for maybe a double top 10 result here today. Nakajima, though, it's not going to be another podium, sadly, for the Japanese driver. He's pulling into the pits to retire due to gearbox issues. Disaster for Lotus in their battle with Ferrari. Ferrari right now leading the race as Martin Brundle into the pits for the second and final time. Another set of intermediates, and he's going to rejoin in 12th place. Perez Sala in 11th up ahead. And there's a real possibility of a top 10 if Martin Brundle can put everything together today. This is Riccardo Patrese. Patrese off into the gravel, into the wall. And the Williams of Riccardo Patrese, that's his 9th retirement in 11 races. It looked like a hefty impact, but I think he's going to be okay. There's a tyre barrier there, as Martin Brundle moving past Perez Sala and into the top 10 as Perez Sala, the Minardi, serving a pit stop. And lap 43, it's the final lap. Gerhard Berger rounding the final corners for the final time. He's going to make it. Back-to-back victories for the first time since the back end of 1987. Gerhard Berger wins the Belgian Grand Prix for Ferrari, and Thierry Boutsen in 2nd place. Martin Brundle, it's going to be 10th place for Streamline. Finally a good result for both Brundle and Streamline. They've been severely missing these results. Great work. And after all that, Gerhard Berger wins by more than a minute ahead of Thierry Boutsen, who claims a podium at his home Grand Prix. He's been in form all weekend, and Nelson Piquet, another podium for him in his really loose challenge for the championship now. Derek Warwick in the points again, Nigel Mansell finishing in the points for Williams, and Stefan Johansson scores Ligier's first points of the season. That means Tyrrell's Jonathan Palmer just misses out. Andy Wallace, another top 10 for him. I think that's his 3rd top 10 in a row, and Streamline get their first ever top 10 in the history of Streamline engineering in the sport. 10th place for Martin Brundle, Alex Caffey in 12th place there, Gugelmin all the way down in 15th. We had 15 drivers finishing here today. Patrese retiring. He was the biggest crash of them all, really, in terms of actual incidents into a wall. A few drivers hitting the wall through Blanchimont, which was very strange. But the biggest strange thing that happened, Senna and Prost both retiring. Prost down as a suspension failure. Ayrton Senna as a collision. I'm not sure what happened with him. Prost set the fastest lap on lap 2 of the race at 2:05.354. Of course, Senna still leads the way in the Drivers' Championship, 16 points ahead of his teammate Prost, but Berger ever closing that gap. He's now only 22 points off the lead, and Nelson Piquet closing in as well. And of course we saw Stefan Johansson score his first points of the season, so he's up to 20th place. We've seen 20 drivers score points in 11 races so far this year, and Brundle's 10th place today means he's inside the top 30 for the first time since, I believe, the second race of the season. 36 drivers taking part this year so far, and only 20 scoring points. 20 is a lot, to be fair. 20 is a lot of drivers to score points, considering only the top 6 get points in a race. This result means McLaren have to wait at least one more race before hitting the triple digits in the Constructors' Championship. Ferrari pull away from Lotus, though. Arrows scoring today, Benetton scoring today, and Williams scoring today. Ligier's points put them level with Minardi in the battle for 9th. Maybe if they can scrape another point here or there in the remaining 5 races, they could finish in 9th place. Streamline, with that result today, have jumped up above Zach Speed. Well, thank you very much for watching, everybody. I really enjoyed this episode. I hope you did as well. Make sure to get yourself into the Streamline Discord if you want to vote for the driver we'll be picking to race for the team next year. If you liked the video, make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.